I don't know what I was thinking of. So here's our stuff. We already talked about the exam date correction. We'll finish talking about the syllabus. We'll do some practice clicking and then a few other things. But there's something I feel that I must correct for the historical record. This Coley matrix thing that you may have heard about, where some people misguided do not feel that UCF is the #1 football team in the nation, are disproven by this particular Coley matrix. It's an official calculation, and I believe that UCF comes in #1. And that Alabama is out of here. So Alabama, I'm sure there's a lot of nice people in Alabama, and we have to be nice to them, because if we talk about this too much, they'll start crying, carrying on. But yeah, Alabama, you're out of here. Forget about it. All right, last time we talked about spectra. We talked about the thermal light source, the light bulb, the incandescent light bulb, and how it gave a continuous spectrum of all the visible colors. Now, we used a diffraction grating, that little cardboard card with a little piece of clear plastic. It achieved a similar dispersion of light, dispersion of the colors, like a prism, but make a note to yourself. The diffraction grating is not a prism. A prism disperses light through a physical process called refraction. But diffraction is something we'll talk about this semester, and that's what we observed with the diffraction gratings. We also looked at the discrete spectrum of hydrogen, the discrete spectrum of helium, the discrete spectrum of neon. And I mentioned to you, first of all, that UCF is #1, Alabama is #2, and also that those discrete spectral lines are like the quantum fingerprints that identify beyond a shadow of a doubt that the source that you're looking at contains some hydrogen or contains some helium or contains some neon. And I mentioned that other substances have spectra as well. For instance, water has emission and absorption of light in the infrared, the microwave region of the spectrum. Hydrogen actually has ultraviolet spectral lines, but it's hard to see those with your regular eyeballs. We observed and measured pendulum oscillation period, symbol capital T. And I mentioned how Galileo, professor of mathematics at the University of Padua in Italy, 400 years ago or so, figured this out, the idea of the pendulum. And we actually measured that period. We began talking about the syllabus. Let's get to it. This is the exam schedule that I'm off, but it's corrected April 10th. And that's on the green one. And actually, Darian, can you start handing out this second handout? Yeah. I have another a bonus handout. All right, just hand it out in bunches. And it's basically the exam schedule. So you have a handy one-sheet guide to exam concepts. Darian will go through that. But you've also got it on your syllabus. It's just a little bit smaller there on the back page. Now, I want to point out to you the office hours this semester are going to be at 10 o'clock to 11 a.m. Now, I couldn't hold him yesterday because I couldn't get to the room available. But starting next Wednesday, we'll have him room 158 in the Physical Sciences building, PS 158. And actually, that's a kind of a sunroom, a solarium, right next to the main entrance. And my office is room 156. Thanks, dear. One door, past the elevator, so 2 doors away from this lecture hall. Now, on Friday, I have a question mark because I am not sure if Darian Fry is going to have any office hours this semester.
I just don't know.
She just told me yes. But we don't know yet. Maybe Friday, hopefully. Hopefully a good day and a time where if you can't make it to my lecture hours, but you can make it to Darian's, that'll be good. It'll be because she's pretty smart. All right. Now, any questions about that exam schedule and stuff? We'll talk a little bit more about exam principles here. Okay. Textbook. It's called Interactions, written by me. Here's the cover image. Wonderful photo taken out in California. To get the textbook, you can buy it, if you haven't already, over in the bookstore. And I wish it was cheaper. I think I mentioned it to you last time that I wrote this so that you could have an inexpensive book, but the publisher jacked up the price, and then the UCF bookstore jacked it up on top of that. So, but the most economical place to buy it is at KendallHunt.com, the publisher. Then once you get it, you also want to download the software called Bookshelf. And I have not used it on my phone. Darian, have you used... Have you used the Bookshelf app on your phone at all? Okay. I use it on my laptop, but you might want to use it on your phone. Try it out. I like it. It works pretty good. You can use it to start reading and studying, and you can actually use highlights. As a matter of fact, you can subscribe to the highlights. Here's the price, $85. I wish it could be about like $20. It's one of these days when I'm elected the boss of textbooks, that's what it'll be. So here's what the Bookshelf app looks like. This is the second edition, highlighted, and you just click on it, and then it'll take you to a page where you see, one of the chapters. Here's a picture with Galileo on it. And what I want to mention to you, you can see down here towards the bottom, kind of in pinkish, dark pinkish color, some highlights. And the highlights are pretty nice. Now, these are my highlights. All right? So, when you highlight something in a book, you're telling yourself, I think this is pretty important. Let me highlight it. So it stands out, and you can go back and study it and review it and stuff, right? Although some people, I've seen like fresh. Raise your hand if you're a freshman. Okay, raise your hand if you're afraid to admit you're a freshman. See, nobody, they can't even. Anyways, I've seen freshmen like highlight the entire page. For pages, for chapters, just highlight it. And I don't know if you do that, but I don't think that's right. You should just highlight limited parts. But anyways, it's a way of expressing to remind yourself what's important. Now, if you think, and here's the way they look, you can even, your highlights show up in the little sidebar. If you think that your highlights are good, which they are, and you use them for studying, wouldn't it logically be true that my highlights are even more important for trying to, and that's something nice because you can subscribe to my highlights by email. So all the things in the text, in my textbook that I think are important, that I've highlighted and commented on, you'll be able to see it if you subscribe. Now, let me show you how to subscribe to it. This is my username. And what you do is you subscribe using my email address. Now, you might not be able to see that, so let me blow up that email address. I see somebody in the back of the room trying to take a picture. It's all going to be on YouTube. You can just, you don't have to worry about that. So there it is. It's just deliberately misspelled. brewbeckner@knights.ucf.edu. That's so that you're not tempted to actually use it to send me any email. But it's a phony Knights email address. Well, it's not phony. I mean, it's kind of a dummy account that I use for registering software and websites and stuff. And this is one of them, the bookshelf application. And using that, you can subscribe to my highlights, and that will give you insight into what I think is important. Now, you have to have the textbook of your own, all right? And unfortunately, they only give it, I consider it a gigantic, ginormous ripoff. They only give you a 6. You're not even getting a book. You're basically renting a service for $85. See, they didn't tell me that when I wrote the book. I thought you'd get something cheap and you'd have it and that'd be good. But you're renting it for $85 or whatever you pay for 6 months. So I wish it wasn't the case, but that's what it is. I wish it could just be permanent. Like you download a book or music, it doesn't evaporate after 6 months, but this stuff does. So let's finish talking about the syllabus. Now I'm just going to go to the screen here. And let me get my specs on. So let's look at the green syllabus. Let's look at the main syllabus handout. Okay. Grade scale we went over last time. Strategy for taking down a top grade. This is on the first side. You will find this course challenging but not impossible. The exams will contain plenty of basic material so that if you do the normal amount of studying, faithfully come to lecture, and do your homework every time, you will find exams tough to flunk. All right? But even if you go above and beyond the call of duty and attending office hours, discussing homework in web courses discussions every week, review all lectures in YouTube, carefully study all classwork questions, you'll still find my exams are tough to ace. And usually that works out pretty well. Basically, when I write exams following this principle, it means I put a lot of basic questions on there and 1 or 2 brain burners that really make you think. All right? That even if you've done everything, you're still going to have to really think how to solve that question or how to make that calculation. All right? And it works out pretty fair. I never have to curve grades. And people get plenty of good grades. And you know what? I am very happy about students, especially, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but you may think to look around the class. There's probably dozens of students in here right now that are thinking now or have thought in the recent past, I'm just no good in science. I don't know how to do it. And but I'll take physical science, like Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh. I'm just no. But what many of you are going to find, if that describes you, if that describes your thoughts, many of you, and I never know who it's going to be, but many of you will find yourself, whoa, I'm starting to really get this. I'm starting to really, really understand this. And you'll come up to me, Dr. B, I've never done good in science before, but I have a B on this midterm. Dr. B, I'm within striking range of an A for this semester. I never thought I could do that. And I don't know who it's going to be. It could be you. You with the glasses. It could be you. It could even be one of you guys all the way in the back. Yo. Yeah, I just never know who it's, but I know it's going to be somebody. And it's going to be several of you. So even though this is me saying, yep, it's going to be a challenge to, you might not find it that hard if you're a good student to get a 90%, to get an A on a test, but to get 100%, everything right, that's going to be a challenge. But you go for it. And I have found that many students, don't shake your head, no, it could be you. Many students will, I'm not kidding either. It's true. I mean, I just never know who it is. But, 4 months from now, I'll know who it is. And you'll know who it is. And it's really interesting. And for those of you that are elementary or secondary ed teachers, education, raise your hand if you're an ed major. Wonderful. Those of you that are ed majors, it's extremely gratifying. It's one of the best payoffs as a teacher. Instead of the big bucks, we don't get that, but we do get to see you guys occasionally break through. Oh my goodness, it's a thrill, a real thrill. So tough to flunk, tough to ace. All right, next page. My admonition to you is, study diligently and faithful, and know that to prosper, to crush everything in your path, you must think. That's what we're here for. We're not here for memorizing formulas. And, memorization will help you a little bit, but not a whole lot. But thinking. And you guys are starting to think like, I could tell Tuesday, some of you are starting to think like scientists. See, I got you right where I want you. All right, next paragraph, second page, up near the top on the left. Strategy to bring home an F for the semester. It's a simple strategy. Miss a ton of lecture. Don't do much homework. It's incredible to me, but that's what some students do. I make it almost impossible to flunk if you just come to class and do your homework. But some people, but not many. Not many will be in that category. Okay, homework. I frequently assign homework at the end of each lecture, and you'll have a homework assignment this weekend. Fairly small one. Also, homework 0 is running. Try to get that. That's your attendance homework. It doesn't count for your grade, but try to get that done by tomorrow night if you haven't already. I think I gave you like 78 attempts on that, so you better get it right. One question. Homework. The assignment will always be due at the next lecture meeting. All right? So do not let me catch you napping and say, oh, Dr. B, I thought it was due at midnight. No, it's never due at midnight. It's always due at noon, the next lecture meeting. Unless I give you a second try, then I might make it due at the meeting after that, but it's always due at noon. So if at 12:14 p.m. on a Tuesday, I assign homework number 42 concerning entropy, it will be due at noon on Thursday following. Similarly, if at 12:15 on Thursday, I assign a homework 86 on the curvature of space-time, it will be at noon on the following Tuesday. All right, I'll try to make the Tuesday assignments a little bit smaller because you just got 2 days for it. But you'll find them not to be too bodacious. And by the way, I saw some people typing in some stuff in discussions. Do you want to go and sit over there with them? You're good? Okay. All right. Discussions can be really helpful. If you get stumped on a homework problem, post a question in discussion, and Darian and I and your classmates will pitch in and give you tips, and you'll be able to solve the problems. It works out pretty good. Can you bring the lights all the way up? We don't really need the display for this. I need it to read, though. Okay. The 25 points for your semester grade that arise from homework performance are a straight multiplication of your percentage. So in other words, if you have 81.4%, 92 out of 113, for instance, Multiply 25 by 0.814, you get 20.35 points, and then I just round it up to straight 21. I do that with iClicker's pointage as well. Let's talk about iClickers. You register your iClicker 2 only through web courses. Now, I had a few students in my astronomy class that used iClicker.com. That is not going to work. You have to do it through web courses because with a big enrollment like this, we have to make sure you don't mess up. And the thing that you can mess up is your NID. And but web courses will automatically do that part correctly. So you go in there and you click in it, and it works like. And in fact, I'll go over it with you here in a second. I think. Let's see. No class code is needed when registering. Also, did anybody get one of those little scratch-off cards at the store? I don't think, and you got it with a used iClicker. I don't think you actually need that. What? Yeah, you've already tried it. Yeah. Well, I had a student, listen carefully. I had a student in my astronomy class this morning at 9 o'clock, and he borrowed an iClicker from a roommate, which you can do if he's not using it Tuesday and Thursday, noon to 1:30. That'll work fine. You can use it. You have to register it in web courses. And he went and bought one of those cards for $50 or whatever it is. It's unbelievable. So then I said, well, did you register it yet? And he said, no, I was trying. He said, I registered in web courses. So we looked him up, and after we synchronized the roster, he was on it. So he didn't need that scratch-off card. So if you rent an iClicker, I understand they give you the card for free. But I don't want anybody, if you borrow an iClicker from a roommate, do not go and buy one of those cards because you just get yourself in there, no problem. All right? And that bookstore, they're pretty aggressive about getting your money, I've noticed. And so, but that one you don't fall for that one. All right. So register only through web courses. No class code is needed. You have to type in the serial number. And by the way, the serial number also appears on the screen for like 2 seconds when you turn on the device. So you might have to turn it on and off a couple times to get all 9 digits or all 8 digits or whatever it is, because it goes off pretty fast. But if this number gets rubbed off on the back, you can just look at the display. It works pretty good. All right. Use Chrome and Firefox. Safari is a little shaky, I have heard. If it's not registered through web courses, you will not get any participation points on your semester grade. The deadline for registering is January 18th. That's next Thursday. So we're going to be doing practice questions today and practice questions Tuesday. But Thursday, we'll be doing iClicker questions, but they'll be for participation points for the semester. Exam attendance is mandatory, but regular lecture attendance is not mandatory. That being the case, there's a built-in leeway for 1 or 2 absences due to a dentist appointment, roommate issues, etc. So the leeway factor works this way. You must answer 85% of all lecture questions, whether correctly or incorrectly, in order to get all 25 points for your semester grade. So in other words, you don't have to answer 100% correctly or incorrectly. It's participation, so I'm not checking your answer. I'm checking your participation. All right? So if you get 85% of them answered, that gives you, like 1 or 2 lectures to burn. So like if your iClicker takes a vacation in your roommate's truck over the weekend and you don't have it, 1 or 2 of those, or a dentist appointment or something, or you're over in the medical center, you got strep throat, hopefully not. But stuff happens. So if you miss 1 or 2 lectures, and you're not below 85%, you'll still get all 25 out of 25. Now, if you go below 85%, we make the pointage proportional. All right, so we'll work at an example of the proportional grading. It's a little tricky, but we'll wait a few weeks before we do that. And when you have some eye-clicking action in the grade book, you'll be able to follow along and calculate your own iClicker pointage. So we'll wait a couple weeks on that. But it's not that hard. It's a simple proportion. Now, to earn these class participation points, you must do the following 3 things. You must have the iClicker 2 with you in lecture. You must have an iClicker 2 that's in working order, and it must be registered through web courses only. Now, iClicker in working order, the iClickers are notorious for flaking out, especially in a midterm or a final, if you don't replace the batteries. When you buy it, they put the absolute cheapest batteries they can find, and they're really unreliable. So if you want to take some good advice from Dr. B, go buy some Energizers or some Duracells, if you haven't already, and replace those El Cheapo batteries that it comes with. All right, so you've actually got to have it. It's got to be working. So that's why I say, sometimes your batteries fail. Okay, 1 lecture, 2 lectures, that's not going to kill you. All right, and that's what the leeway factor is for. Okay, combination of clicking and homework. Yeah, 25 and 25, that's equivalent to a full midterm. 25 from homework, 25 from clicking. So if you get 25 and 25, that's like getting 50 out of 50 on a midterm. It just adds right in there. All right? So so if you do get tripped up on a midterm or 2 midterms, and we drop the lowest, but you still have 1 that's kind of stinky, getting 50 out of 50 through iClicking and homework is going to cover up a little bit of that. So that'll be nice. But you won't know what you get until the end of the semester. That's the only part. So you just got to stay with it. Faithfully come to class. Faithfully do your homework. Exam procedure. I believe we taught. Let's go through this. You have to bring a number 2 pencil, a good eraser, and a UCF Scantron, the raspberry colored one. 50 questions on the front, 50 on the back. And bring your iClicker 2. Basic scientific calculator is fine. Anything with a square root key ought to be sufficient. You must be on time. We talked about that. Late arrival after the first student finishes means you cannot take the exam, and it will be a 0. Now, that's not necessarily a disaster on a midterm, because you have 1 midterm to drop. So if you're late, you come in after the first person drops off their test with me up front here, you're toast. But that'll just be a 0, and that'll be your exam that you drop. Okay, so hopefully if you have 2 other good grades that are good, it's not a disaster, it's kind of a pain on the neck. But if you do it on the final, and we had a few students, that's what happened on the final, just a month ago right now. It was not pretty for them when I got to their grades. Just put it that way. All right, so no cell phones are allowed during exams, so just keep them in your book bag. If you forget your calculator, you'll be fine with a little bit of scratch paper, 6th grade long division type stuff. We drop the lowest score, keep the best 2. Most of you will be at the all 3 midterms, and that's really good. That's the way to do it. If you miss an exam due to absence, look at this in boldface, either excused or unexcused, that is effectively a 0, and that'll be the exam score that is dropped. Now that applies to unexcused and excused, all right? So if you have a doctor's note for that day, that's an excused absence, but it doesn't mean you get a makeup. There's no makeups. There's no early test, there's no makeup test, there's no late test. There's just the test. You either make it or you don't. And if you're excused or unexcused, it's the one that gets dropped. Now, most of you won't even have to worry about that. And fall semester, we had to do a massive rearrangement of the schedule because of the hurricane. But other than that, most of you guys will be here for all three. But if you're not here, that's the one that's dropped, right? Then the other two that we do take will be your best two scores because they're your only scores. All right? I don't give makeup exams, neither late nor early, only the exams on the schedule. The final exam is cumulative, mandatory, and cannot be dropped. So when you're thinking, oh, I'll just drop the final. No. You can drop one of the three midterms if you take three. Right? But you can't drop the final. It'd be nice if you could, but no, that's not how it works. All right? So Thursday, April 26th, until mid-afternoon, don't schedule anything. All right? And tell your boss off campus. If you usually work, like we normally are finished here at, actually, we're usually finished here at about 1:20, and we'll finish the final at 12:50. So that's actually a little bit before our normal dismissal time here. But do not mess around. I'm not going to give you a special time because your boss doesn't give you time off. You tell your boss, Dr. B is an SOB, the son of a Brickner. And he's not going to give you he's not going to budge. Okay? So make perfect attendance at your 4 exams your absolute priority. Okay, iClicker bonus points. You'll get a bonus point if you're registered today, and you'll get another bonus point if you're registered on Tuesday. So try to get your iClicker, try to get it registered through the web courses. But next Thursday, if you don't get it then, just make sure you have it by Thursday and get it registered and stuff, and that'll be official pointage. So the clicking that we do today, if you're registered, it'll get you a bonus point. So you can start off the semester with an A. Also, in terms of participation, I tell you that 25 points in your semester grade comes from participation, whether you answer correctly or incorrectly. However, that does not mean that you should just answer C, 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 C for every question, every lecture. You'll get 25 points, but you'll miss the bonus points because the bonus points you get are under the following conditions. If you answer 75% of the questions correctly, so if I ask 100 questions and you answer 75 of them correctly, and maybe you answer 87 of them and 75 of them are actually correct, that means you got 75%, that's a B. I mean, if it were a test, that'd be a B. Okay, so if you get a B on clicking, 4 bonus points. All right, now 4 bonus points in our grading scheme, we have 250 points. Okay, and so what's 4 divided by 250? 4 divided by 250. 4 divided by 250. It's 1 point something percent. 4 divided by 250. 1.6? Okay, 1.6%. All right, so that's a nice little chunk of change. So if you answer the iClicker questions correctly, so do your best, and you'll earn some bonus points. And that might be the 1.6% of your semester grade that you need to go from the borderline B to an A for the semester. And every semester, there are students that just squeak across the borderline because of stuff like that. They bag that bonus point, 4 bonus points, or some other bindle of bonus points. So stay on your toes. Okay, let's take a look back over here. Special study groups. We'll be doing a special study groups after exam 2. I'll explain more about that in March, I guess. YouTube lectures, if you haven't already figured it out, I upload them after class every day. And you can use them to study with. That's one of Darian's patented study techniques, is to review lecture notes alongside the YouTube, re-looking at the lecture. Because you can go back and forth if you want to dwell on, what did he say? At 12:23 on lecture 14, then you can do that. You just do the progress controller and just go back and listen to it 3 times and get it right. And modify your notes and stuff like that. Works pretty good. All right, so that's the syllabus. And you have your bonus schedule handout. Keep the green ones, discard the white one that I gave you on Tuesday. That's got that exam date. That's wrong. All right, let's try some practice clicker questions. And just so you know, we're switching over to a new frequency. We're going to use frequency DD for this semester. And for those of you that are using a roommate's iClicker, it is definitely possible to do that. But if your roommate's using it on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or something like that, he might be using frequency AA, which is the default setting for frequencies. And a lot of faculty use that. Just know that to operate it correctly, you have to use DD. So, Darian, can you change to the document cam? Yeah, I'm gonna. Okay, I want to show you something here. I've got this clicker that somebody left, and let's see if I can get this. All right, now I'm going to turn this on. Okay, now see it says DA up there? It flashes the ID number, and then it says ready. But that doesn't mean, and I'll be able to click with this, but actually start the question there. You guys click. All right, now watch what happens when I type in the letter A. See, it says no base, and it gets that circle with a crossbar in it. That means you're not on the right frequency. So if that happens to you, you hold the power button down, okay, until those letters flash, and then you type in DD. And then you get a check mark, and you get the go nitro, and then you get the ready button. Now I'll type in the letter A, and I get a check mark, and it says ready. All right, so try to remember that. We're going to be on frequency DD, and I'll remind you as we go through. So who's got a go nitro message? Raise your hand. All right, let's go. Question number 1 for today. Highly scientific.
It's still on the document. Here we go.
Somebody voted for E. Oh. I'm not really sure I'm getting through to you guys. It's a little shaky. I'm not really sure about. All right. So somebody voted for D. 3 people voted for D. I can see what you guys are voting up here. I'll show it to you in a minute. Okay, 10 seconds to vote. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, switch over to the display, please. Thank you. All right, now there's the distribution of answers. And apparently some people voted for Barney and Justin Bieber, and I'm not really sure about you. And I think I might know who it was because I could see some people giggling in the back of the room back there. All right. I can figure out the thing is, I can figure out all 5 of those people. I can figure out who you are. Vote for Justin Bieber and Barney the Purple Dinosaur. But, go ahead and switch back now. The correct answer is definitely And I see that most of you voted for Chuck Norris. Pretty good, right? Actually, that's wrong. Bruce Lee is the correct answer to that one. And a lot of you voted for that. And Bruce Lee, he's the only guy that ever beat up Chuck Norris. It was in a movie, The Way of the Dragon, way back in 1972. They had a famous fight scene. Epic. So Darian, let me show you something over here. On this one, if you touch, you can grade that one by touching the screen for letter C. Yeah, I think. Maybe not. All right. Yeah.
I can just click it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's try a calculation. Hit the refresh key on your calculator. That's the blue one. Calculate the length of the hypotenuse of this triangle and type in your number. By the way, when you hit the refresh key, it'll change into numeric and it'll start on the number 1. It's looking for a number. So you hit the up and down arrow keys to get like 2, 3, 4, downward to get 0. There's a decimal point in there, and you can type in, like a 3, and then if you want to type in 33, you just type in the 3, and then hit the right arrow key, and you type in another 3 with the up and down arrow keys. And then always hit the send key. All right, so type in your number and hit the send key. Now, when we're doing multiple choice, like the first question, you don't have to hit the send key. But when you're doing numbers or words, you do have to hit the send key. All right, so that's up the upper right. All right, so I just sent in 33. All right, so try to do that. And the rest of you guys that don't have iClickers, go ahead and write this down. It's a little. Most of the time, the iClicker questions are good. If you put them all together, about 20 questions or so in the lectures leading up to exam 1. You'll find that they make a nice little kind of a mini study guide. So, all right, 15 seconds to vote, starting now. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ching. All right, Darian, I want to show the students this one.
So computer.
Yeah, computer. All right, now the correct answer, Darian, can you click on 13? The correct answer for this one is 13. But Darian, can you bring the slider down? Now look, actually stop at 169 there. See that 169? That's the square of 13. So it looks like 2 people typed that in. They forgot to do the square root key on their calculator. All right? Now, the reason I'm pointing this out to you is because on an exam, when you do the iClicker questions, that'll be for simple calculations, maybe a few words or symbols. I grade those using the spreadsheet of the raw data. It works really nicely. And I look at every single answer. Now, if you answer 13 on this one, I'm not really going to look at that one because I know that one's right. But what I especially am looking for are things like 169. And I'll see that, okay, they forgot to hit the square root key, but they were kind of halfway there. So if that's a 2-point question on the exam, I might give them partial credit, 1 point, okay, instead of 0. And the reason that that's nice is partial credit. If you think about it, on a Scantron, you cannot give partial credit. You either got it, you have the dot correct, or you don't. All right? So, but with the iClicker, typing in a number or a phrase, I can give partial credit, and I can actually give you feedback can actually see what you're thinking sometimes. Now, can you go down and see the 33? Now, I see everything that you guys type in a spreadsheet, not like this, but down here somewhere, there's me, 33. Okay, I typed that one in. And some of these I can't really make out. 150. I'm not sure. Some of them I look at some of the answers and I can't really make out, but 169 definitely I can make out what that's about. All right, so remember that when you're doing this. Okay, yeah, switch back to the desktop. All right, so go ahead and jot down the answer here on this one is 13. And so we'll be doing iClicker questions, multiple choice, numeric. Sometimes we'll do alphanumeric. You type in a word or a phrase or something. And just to remind you, the official iClicker participation starts next Thursday on the 18th. So we'll do practice questions until then. And actually that Pythagorean theorem question, that wasn't really practice, that was a simple distance calculation. But you'll get a bonus point for every day that you're registered. And right now we've got a bunch of you guys registered. And so get that iClicker in and then you'll get a few bonus points. All right. Now let me pause for questions. Yes?
All the homework is going to be on web courses?
All the homework is going to be on web courses. So it'll be in the way of multiple choice. And we're not finished. What do you put? We're just getting started here. We got another 10 minutes. And I'm just getting started with the physics. We're done with the syllabus part, but we're still talking about physics for another 10 minutes. And the answer is yes, it'll be multiple choice type, maybe some matching, and usually a few calculation questions. And you'll usually have 4 attempts. Sometimes I put up a special calculation practice homework, and I give you 6 attempts just so you can, totally crush it, get extra practice and stuff. But usually, but all in web courses. That's right. All right. Yes.
For each of the midterms, or for example, are 2 and 3 cumulative?
The question is, are 2 and 3 exams 2 and exam 3, are they cumulative? Officially no, but effectively yes. Because, exam 1, we're going to be talking, for instance, about Newton's 3 laws of motion. And there will never be a day when we stop talking about that, either directly or indirectly. So, we won't, you'll still have to think about Newton's laws of motion, even if I don't ask you basic Newton's 3 laws of motion questions on an exam. So if we're doing quantum physics or electromagnetism or something on exam 3, you might not see any direct, okay, what is Newton's 3rd law of motion type question, but you'll still have to keep it because it's related to everything. So, and then the final officially is cumulative. So, all right, go ahead.
I know you mentioned
Bruce.
There you go. Yeah, got it. I know you mentioned your YouTube lectures. Can you find those through web courses?
Yeah, there's a link I think there's a link in web courses. I think I put it up. And there's also links to other semesters and to demonstration videos and stuff like that. Darian's in a bunch of those. So it's, it's building up quite a, but we have a specific playlist.
When you put that in on Google, it's the very first thing that comes up. Just YouTube 11, PSC 1121.
Darian says just Google PSC 1121 and it's the first thing that comes up. That's interesting. So I own PSC 1121 as far as Google. Nice. I should monetize it. Make about $2. All right. Now, about this thing, this learning thing, this thing that we do. Look at that picture. I love that picture. Everybody's, your parents probably think, why do you have to have your nose in your phone all the time? But, your parents, they're doing the same thing, if they have a phone. Learning. It's just something you ever think about that? Every time you see somebody on a phone, what are they doing? They're learning. Well, they're either talking to somebody, or these guys are reading something, Reddit or whatever. And it's not like they're reading Shakespeare or something, but they're learning something on their phone. It is the thing that we do. And the other thing about that, when we're learning, we have an innate sense that what we want to find is that which is true. And people say things all the time, but if it's not true, you don't want it. If you're trying to find the real price of a pair of sneakers or something, you can find, but you want to get the true price. What am I actually going to pay? For instance, and everything that we do. I mean, think about it. That's what we're always striving to find, that which is true. So let's talk about truth. For instance, as the classical philosophers, Aristotle, does truth reside in the thing or only in the intellect? There's a question for you. And so Aristotle defined truth in the following way: to say of what is that it is not, or of what is not that it is false. While to say of what is that it is, and of what is not that it is not, is true. That's from his Metaphysics. Augustine, St. Augustine, that is true which is. And that kind of rhymes with Aristotle. And Thomas Aquinas, truth is that toward which the intellect naturally tends. And really, in terms of this phrase I love to use, that thing we do, number 3 is the best. That towards which the intellect tends, or that thing that we do. So, how do you recognize the truth? What criteria are there? Well, we're going to be talking about the scientific enterprise for this semester, but let's take a look at a few other human activities through which we hope to find that which is true. First of all, a love letter. A love letter. You want it to be true. This famous song. Did you ever sing that one, Barbara Allen? Mm-hmm. And there they twined in a true love's knot, the red, red rose and the briar. So you hope that it's true love. But how do you judge that? Well, you gotta, that's something from the heart. Now, Galileo doesn't have anything to say about, well, probably he does. I mean, he had love in his life and stuff. But his scientific enterprise is not about that. Court of law. You're in a court of law. You don't want the prosecutor to be untruthful. You especially don't want the judge to be untruthful, because if you do, if either one of those happens, you got a world of hurt. You ain't got a shot. All right? So you go into a court of law, you take an oath. There's all kinds of rules. You can look them up in federal courts. Here's a famous one, the hearsay rule, Rule 804. Exceptions to hearsay. Now, in the federal Rule 804, Rules of Evidence, hearsay itself is inadmissible. And you've heard that before. Well, that's hearsay evidence. You can't use that in a court of law. And the assumption is hearsay is not something you can depend on to be true, because people say stuff that ain't true all the time. Like I saw Elvis walking down the street yesterday. or I saw Elvis in a UFO. You know, people say all kind of weird stuff, you know. But there's exceptions. So for instance, here's an exception. This is from Federal Rule 804. So this is a criterion of the truth inside a federal courtroom. Statement under belief of imminent death. That is admissible. You might not win your case, but it is admissible. So that's like a deathbed confession. A deathbed confession has a presumption of truth, right? So you can use it in a court of law. A statement against interest. This is a powerful exception to the hearsay rule. Statement against interest is admissible, and that is where a person admits or makes a statement against his own interest in staying out of jail or losing money. So if a person makes a statement that incriminates himself, willingly makes a statement like that, the judge says, okay, we'll accept that as admissible, because a person would not naturally say that if it weren't true. Nobody's going to go around saying, well, I did steal that Ferrari. I stole it and I used this technique, if it weren't true, because they know that they'd get put in the slammer. All right. Now, in the scientific enterprise, begun by, here's a picture of Professor Galileo looking at the stars. The thing that we have to do is figure out the criterion of truth and work it out. Work out the criterion of truth concerning the scientific enterprise. Now, I'll just give you a preview of coming attractions. Go ahead and write this down in your notes. It is and you can read about this in the textbook. I have a long discussion of it in the very beginning of the book. Prediction of a future state. Matter of fact, the scientist observes his world and attempts to answer questions about the things that he sees, especially in terms of a future state. Galileo wanted to know, in his day, they didn't know the exact path of a cannonball through the sky. And they wanted the cannonball to land where where it was supposed to land, not short or not too far. So prediction of a future state. All right. Now, we'll talk more about this on Tuesday. And because I was late, and also because I was not able to dismiss you early, I have some bad news for you. No homework this weekend. You're dismissed, but do homework 0, and I'll see you on Tuesday. Doesn't that just cut your heart to the grits?